Jeff Lilley, thanks for being here. This is the beginning of our year of Joshua 2005, 2006. You're our first speaker. It's always fun having you out here. But yeah, just wanted to hear how are you tied into Hume? Tell us the history of Joshua. I know you have a bit of history with Joshua, but yeah.
So history with Hume goes way back. Came as a camper, wagon train, slept in the covered wagons, did that kind of thing. So a lot of history there of just early on going to camp at Hume, and then eventually one summer in college, my mom sent me application for Hume summer staff, and the implication was don't come home, go get a job. So I did, and came to work at Hume years and years ago, and then worked food service and program and some administrative roles, and then eventually associate director and executive director. So during that season of the senior leadership stuff, the Lord had started to whisper into my ear the idea of Joshua, and conversations with youth pastors and different parents and things like that. The idea of a program. Nobody was saying a program. I just started listening to the needs of what was happening in young people's lives. And I thought, what if we created a program that was dialed in specifically for that? So started sketching it out, and it's really cool now to walk into a building and
Yeah.
students here, and it's fun.
25 years after, probably even more than that. I mean, as you guys prepped for years to start this. One of the things I've been curious about over the years, and it's something we've talked a lot about, is Numbers 13 and 14, why Josh was called Joshua. But I know the biblical reason why it's called Joshua. But how did you guys start coming to that? Because it was you, a guy named Darren. I know Bobby Phillips was involved to some extent. How did you guys start going, hey, this is where we're going to go, and this is why the name is going to be Joshua?
Yeah, well, Hume hires a ton of summer staff, and so we would have 300 plus college students every single year. And as you talk to the different college students, you would see some that just had a passion, knew exactly what they wanted to do. I'm going to go be a lawyer. I'm going to go be a doctor. I'm going to go be whatever they knew exactly what they were going to do with life. And then there were others that just were like, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what God's doing with me. I'm not sure what the direction is. And oftentimes, over time, we would find some of those individuals would actually be even more talented and more gifted. So it wasn't like, and not to say anything against doctors and lawyers
Yeah.
and those kind of people that have their life figured out. I think that's awesome. But for some of them, they don't know yet what God's calling is on their life. They haven't really tied into that. And they're a little confused about what direction is. But what we saw was we'd have some really gifted college age staff that were sitting on the sidelines. They didn't know what God was calling them to do. So we started talking through, what if we created a program that would be those moments when God grabs a hold of you and says, I see you, I created you for a purpose, and I have you to send out into the world. So Joshua was really, the simplest form was based to provide the most amount of those kinds of things where God speaks to people and points them in the direction where he would like them to go.
Yeah. And that was the interesting thing there too, of like Caleb speaking up first and then Joshua kind of going like,
Yep.
and then finally speaking up. And I've loved that for years that we've just said like Joshua's for the person who doesn't have it all together, doesn't have all the right answers. And that was, I mean, for me, I was a student 20 years ago, which is wild. And you were a speaker when I was a student. Um, but that was definitely who I was. I didn't have all the right answers. I was even questioning if I believed this, and then came to Joshua, and it was completely life transformative for me. But okay, so we've got the name Joshua. I think the other thing is, and I share the story a lot of like, why is wilderness in the name? But I'd love to hear, you guys were the ones who came up with Joshua Wilderness Institute. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, there's a debate with a couple of friends of mine and I that whether God speaks to you more at the ocean or in the mountains. And I still claim that there are far more stories of God meeting those saints in Scripture in the mountains. Now, it can be argued that Jesus spent time with the disciples on the seashore, but that's because he had to go get them there. That's
Yeah.
where they were fishermen. So anyway, we have fun with that, but that's the gist of it. It's that when you find Moses meets God on the mountain, Elijah meets God on the mountain. We just can go illustration after illustration. Jesus, early morning, when it was still dark, he rose up and went up onto the mountain to pray. That idea of going off into the wilderness removes all the rest of the distractions and leaves you alone with God and his palette, the things that he would surround you with, which is wilderness. And he's quite comfortable there, and he'd love us to be there and to meet with him there. So that's I mean, I could go on and on
Yeah.
about it, but that was the basic premise. Was if we're talking about somebody having an encounter with a living God, scripture wise, the place to go is into the wilderness.
When we talk to students, one of the things we talk a lot about is, yeah, we come up here, we're set apart, and we are in the wilderness, but you're also in a wilderness with God, a seeking after God. And I think that's one of the things I've loved about Joshua over the last 20 years is just giving students an opportunity to be set apart, to be in a place that's quiet, and to just seek after God and enter that wilderness with them. This week, you're talking about a lot of different things, but you're hitting on, what is it, the pillars of wisdom. Can you tell me just briefly about that?
Yeah, that's Proverbs 9, and it just starts off that wisdom has built her house. She's hewn out her seven pillars. And then I'm a kind of guy that stops on a passage like that and go, what does that mean? And the more I've studied it, I have not been able to figure out what wisdom's seven pillars are. Read a ton of commentaries, have people make guesses, that kind of thing. But ultimately, the concept that I was left with after studying it for a long, long time, and literally over years, is that the best thing that I could get is, where do you put pillars? You put pillars in areas that are weak. Architecturally, a pillar is set up on a spot that needs to be supported. And so wisdom has built her house. She's hewn out her seven pillars. She strengthens those things that are weak. Now, what I love is the very next couple of verses are that she goes out to the high points and calls out to them who are foolish, come in here. And she points the way. And so what she's doing isn't so much that wisdom is weak. She's actually building pillars for the rest of us. But what I like to do is to take that concept and stop and say, it's not a bad idea for me to know those areas that are weak in my life and to build pillars, have resolutions and convictions about things that matter. And so as Joshua, first week, they're starting off, it's a great thing for them to literally think through their week and or their year, and to stop and say, in my life, are there some things that I need to carve out some pillars? And the word that's used there in the Hebrew is hewn, and it literally means stone. So it's not even carving wood. It's literally, she's hewn out the pillars, these stone pillars. And so the idea there is, it doesn't get done in a day. It's hard work to do that. And conviction requires homework. And so that's what we encourage them to do, is pick some areas of their life where they know they need a pillar, because we all know where we need a pillar. And then start designing your pillar and how you want to build it.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, it's truly a pleasure to have you here, and I think it's always fun. I know when I first started asking you back the first week, you were like, it's the first week. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I think it's been really sweet to see you just do this and challenge students for the rest of the year. And throughout the course of a year, it's fun to hear students reference back to your week here. And I know you couldn't come last year, so it's fun to have you back. But thank you for being here. Thanks for spending time with us. For the rest of the year, we're going to be doing speaker talks, and so you get to be the first one on we call it now the we call it the Wilderness Survival Podcast. And so you are our first guest, and thank you for being here.
There we go. Thank you.